This is everything you need to know about maintaining a yo-yo, part 1, strings. This video is going to be split into a few different sections.
So, before we get into the video, feel free to check the timeline by clicking on this part of the video to skip to any parts if you're looking for anything specific.
If you're looking for any of these topics, we're not going to be talking about them, but be sure to check the description for videos that might help you out with what you're looking for.
So, with all that out of the way, let's get right into it.
Unwind the string by spinning the yo-yo sideways, or by twisting the string until the string separates into two strands. While slightly pulling the separate strands of the string, insert your finger in between the strands, insert another finger, then split the strands apart and pull out the string. Then get a new string, do the same thing by twisting the string open and putting it in the yo-yo. At the other end of the string, make a loop by taking some string and folding it in half. Then, while pinching both ends, take this loop, wrap it around your fingernail, then pinch it with your thumb. Then slide this part out of your fingernail and slide this end of the string into this loop. Hold this loop, pull both ends, then cut the excess. Once you have this configuration, take out another length of string and make another loop like this. Take this loop and insert it in the ring you made earlier. Open the loop again and now insert that loop in your finger, then wind the string up and you're good to go. Side notes. Most of the time, your string length can determine your playstyle, and depending on the person, the string length can affect how consistent you are with executing tricks. Some good examples of this are Gingie and Xian Araya.
If you look at some of their routines, you'll notice how short their strings are, and if you notice their execution with their tricks, more often than not, they have much cleaner and more consistent routines.
Now this doesn't mean that long strings are uncontrollable or hard to play consistently with. Short strings are just generally better for controlling and consistency, both of which are important when starting out. A better example for this, if you take a look at Evan Nagau's 2017 US Nationals final routine compared to his 2018 finals, you'll notice a fairly significant change in string length. And looking at his performance, you can see how accurate and consistent he was in his 2018 finals. This just goes to show how a shorter string can be more manageable and easier to control. When measuring your string, here are the most common ways to consistently measure your string without using any tools, like measuring tape. Once you put the string on the yo-yo, place the throw in between your feet, close your feet together, and gently pull the string upwards until it meets the height of your navel. Then make the loop at the other end of the string and you're good to go.
Now, if you want a longer string length, here's what you need to do.
Do the same steps you did in the first part, place your pinky finger above the navel and count how many fingers you want your string to be to make it longer. For example, my string length is 8 fingers above the navel. Also, if you're like me and want an alternative way to do this, use your collarbone if you really like long strings. Where do I put the string on my finger?
You can put it anywhere in this area of the middle finger, but most people use the middle part.
Can I put the string on my index or ring finger?
While this is something you could do, I absolutely, strongly recommend you do not do this. The string being on the middle finger is the standard for a reason.
Why does the string hurt when I throw or play with it?
That's completely normal. Your finger hurting doesn't mean anything is wrong. Over time, your finger starts building a thicker layer of skin on the parts of your hand that constantly rub against the string called a callus, so you'll eventually begin to feel less and less pain.
But also keep in mind to look for any wounds. I've had times where I actually cut my skin because of how frequently I've been throwing the yo-yo, so make sure there aren't any cuts or wounds. Why is the string so rough? This can be one or more of 3 things.
Firstly, it can be because of humidity. If you're yo-yoing in a very hot or humid environment, that can sometimes cause the string to change texture.
Another reason is string use. So if you are constantly abusing your yo-yo and pushing it to its limits, it can take a toll on the string and change how it feels.
And lastly, it can also be because of the string's composition. The string may just be more tightly wound, but this mostly just affects the first few minutes of the string's overall lifespan. Over time, the string does get softer.
If you're a bit conservative when using your strings, you can use baby powder or powder that can soften your hands and in turn soften the string, but this can highly risk the functionality of your yo-yo's bearing, since the powder can spread very easily in air. When the strand starts to separate from the entire string.
When you can visibly see the separate strands of string, there's a much higher risk of the string breaking while using it.
And obviously, when the string snaps or breaks on you, replace it. when it's getting too thin or sharp for your own liking, when the tension of the string is uncontrollably tight.
This means when the tension is uncontrollable, and even after readjusting your string tension and it's still tight, that might be a good time to swap out your string.
When the string is too dirty or is not visible enough.
You can prevent this by washing your hands before using your string, but even with that, after a while the string naturally loses its fresh look, so that may be a good time to change your string.
When a string has a knot that's too difficult to untie. Generally speaking, you can change the string whenever you want. It just depends on how you want your string to feel on your hands or how sparingly you spend your strings.
Strings are composed of primarily 3 materials.
Most modern brands choose to use polyester, abbreviated and shortened to poly. This string type is rougher, doesn't stretch as long, but plays far more consistently and is a cheap material. Poly strings are the most popular for competitive use.
A material that isn't quite as popular as it used to be, but still decently prevalent today, is nylon. Nylon is a much softer material known for being incredibly stretchy, super bouncy, but also expensive. Nylon tends to be popular material to be used in strings made by boutique string brands, but aren't quite popular on the competitive stage.
Finally, the last common material is cotton. Cotton used to be more active in the old age of yo-yos. Not 2000s old, going back further to the prevalence of wooden fixed axle yo-yos. Think of the type your grandpa would use. In terms of string brands, I highly recommend using known string brands such as Kitty String, OT Strings, Sochi, Yoyo String Labs, 84 Strings, etc. Or even the stock strings that come with packaged yo-yos.
You can also check local markets if there are any available strings, but I would mostly recommend buying from well-known brands as they make the most competitive and consistent strings designed specifically for yo-yoing.
Feel free to check down in the description for some buy links to some of these brands. When it comes to string thickness, most of the time this topic isn't spoken about. However, string thickness can determine how well and how consistent the yo-yo returns to your hand.
If your string is thin, but your yo-yo has a wide gap width, you can expect the yo-yo to be quite slippy. Similarly, if your string is thick, but your yo-yo has a thin gap, you can expect the yo-yo to be snaggy. It's about finding a balance between the thickness of your string and your style of play.
So in the mainstream of yo-yo strings, the common string thickness you can find are 11 strand, known as normal string thickness, 12 strand, known as fat string thickness, and 13 strand, known as XL.
If you want a general idea for which string thickness fits which gap width best, refer to this table. Please note that the values in this table aren't necessarily requirements, they're just what we would feel which string width fits which gap width best.
Feel which string width.
Oh my god, that's a string. That is a tongue twister.
So if you want to use a thicker string type, I recommend you use yo-yos that fit the gap width. Or if you want to use a yo-yo with a tighter gap width, I recommend you use strings that fit the category. If you still want to use thick strings on tight gaps, or the other way around, that's completely fine.
This table exists as a general idea and reference if you're going to be using any string thickness, now or in the future.
If you want to know the gap width the yo-yo you're using has, check the specs and see what fits. Anyways, that's all for this part of the video. So if you want to see the next part, subscribe to my channel to be notified when the next video comes out, which is gonna be about response pads. Also, special thanks to Gingie for helping me out with this video.
Hi, I'm Gingie. Thanks for asking me to help out with this little project. I'm glad to be helping out beginners. I run my own YouTube channel where I make yo-yo documentaries where I detail the history or process of making certain yo-yos, and I try to be as accurate and detailed as I can with these documentaries. And I also make reviews of various yo-yos. I've been in this hobby for a long time, so I believe that I have a very deep knowledge of yo-yoing and I have a lot of experience with yo-yoing, so I use this experience to make reviews. I'm fairly active in the Yo-Yo Tricks Discord server. If you're a beginner and you're looking to get a start, I'm willing to help there. Just make sure you read the FAQ. But I hope this video was enjoyable.
Feel free to check down in the description to find a link to his channel. So with all that being said, thank you guys for watching and see you there.